I'm Lauren Green, and you're in the Strategy Room. The president has announced the U.S. and Cuba will open embassies in Havana and Washington in the coming weeks. But there is new controversy building over a potential U.S. nominee to be ambassador. Republican critics like Senator Marco Rubio say they will work to stall any confirmation hearing. Here with reaction are political strategists Joe Lestingi and Ron Bonjean. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
All right, so the president says his announcement, isolation of Cuba, a failed policy. The U.S. doesn't have to be imprisoned by the past. It means American diplomats will be able to engage directly with Cuban government officials. So, Ron, your reaction to this Cuba deal that was just announced?
Well, clearly this is going to now enter the 2016 race. You have Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, who have said that they are going to likely block the nominee for a U.S. ambassador to Cuba based upon human rights violations. And, you know, it plays well to the Cuban population within Florida, which is a key battleground state. It's very understandable, especially coming from Marco Rubio, who is a senator from the state, why he would take that position. However, you know, the president does have options. He does not necessarily need to name an ambassador right away. That embassy can get up and can function, you know, and you can have a top bureaucrat in there, but not an ambassador. So I think the argument over the ambassador will be largely symbolic, and they may have to wait a little bit until the 2016 race is over, unless they are able to come to some sort of terms.
Now, Joe, your reaction just to the president's speech.
Yeah, I thought the president, I mean, he was very eloquent in his speech. He came out and he laid out what we're trying to do, and he shared his vision for the future of these relations. He did a great job, though, measuring them and saying that this is a slow process and taking this step by step. As a young American here, this is not an era I grew up in with the history we had with Cuba. So for me to see this vision forward, and for millennials in particular, this is a vision of moving this country forward. Cruz and Rubio are going to run into some serious problems if they do stop the nomination. Not because that stopping the nomination is just symbolic, because that's what it is. The truth is that taking this hardline stance will play very poorly with two particularly large groups, Gen Xers and millennials, that are now coming into the fold as major voters. This is a policy that has been something of the past, and that's where they're going to look. They're going to fit right into the optics of the GOP being in the past and the Democrats being for the future, and that's going to hurt them. So,
Ron, you mentioned about the GOP, and they try to block the U.S. ambassador to the Cuba nominee, but is there any kind of potential nominee that they would be in favor of?
Well, that's up for debate, and you know, frankly, that could be something that they might try to leverage. I'm not sure. As in terms of young voters, I don't think they really care about an ambassadorial fight or not. I mean, you know, clearly we're moving steps in a forward direction towards normalizing relationship with Cuba, and eventually it looks like that's going to happen. But right now they are baby steps, and you know, setting up an embassy is going to be really fascinating to watch and see how it's done and see how the Cuba government reacts as we are having a higher level of diplomats, you know, engage in diplomacy. They're actually very concerned about on how freely our diplomats are going to be able to move around in Cuba. That's going to be interesting.
So, Joe, beyond the ambassador,
Ron's right.
Okay, but beyond the ambassador, could we see any movement on lifting the decades-long embargo?
Well, I think you're going to run into the problem in the Senate again, and here's where you have Cruz and Rubio. Since they're in the presidential race, they are hardline. They can filibuster both of these options, both the ambassador and lifting of the embargo, because only Congress can lift the embargo. That doesn't stop the president from moving forward with the negotiations as far as reestablishing ties and diplomatic relations. The embargo would stay in place. If Rubio or Cruz flip on this, politically, they have a big problem. Rubio's already flipped on immigration a couple times. This label of a flip-flopper might come back to haunt him. Neither one of them can step down from their hardline party stance. So until they're out of the Senate or there's an overwhelming push by Republicans to get those 60 votes needed to break that type of filibuster, the embargo will probably stay in place. All
right, I want to thank you so much, Joe and Ron, for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Well, check out foxnews.com for more on this developing story. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.